You didn't lose the game. You learned the rules. I see you, the quiet strength behind your smile, the questions you ask yourself late at night, the moment you wondered if loving deeply was a mistake. It wasn't. It never was. Let me walk with you, step by step, through what comes next. There is a moment after heartbreak that feels like punishment. You replay conversations in your head. You question your judgment. You ask yourself why you didn't see it coming. And in those quiet hours, when the world is asleep and your thoughts are loud, it feels as if life has turned its back on you. But listen to me gently now. Pain is not punishment. It is preparation. Nothing about what you went through was random. Nothing about the timing was accidental. That experience didn't arrive to destroy you. It arrived to awaken you. Before the hurt, you loved with innocence. You trusted easily. You believed that effort alone could keep people honest. And while that purity was beautiful, it was incomplete. Life knew you needed more than hope. You needed wisdom. Pain is the teacher we never invite but always remember. It strips away illusions. It slows you down long enough to make you look at what you ignored when things felt good. Those nights you cried weren't signs of weakness. They were moments of emotional recalibration. You were learning where your boundaries should have been. You were learning how much you gave and how little you received. You were learning the difference between attachment and alignment. What broke your heart also sharpened your awareness. You now hear tones you once missed. You sense distance before it becomes abandonment. You recognize patterns instead of excusing them. That didn't happen because you became colder. It happened because you became clearer. Pain refined your intuition. It trained your emotional muscles. It prepared you to walk into future rooms with discernment instead of desperation. And here's the truth most people don't tell you. If that heartbreak hadn't happened, you would have kept shrinking yourself to keep someone else comfortable. You would have kept explaining your needs to someone who enjoyed misunderstanding you. You would have stayed loyal to a version of love that required you to disappear in pieces. Pain interrupted that path. Pain said, "This ends here." Preparation is rarely gentle. Growth almost always hurts. Just like muscle tears before it strengthens, your heart had to crack open so it could expand. You didn't lose your softness. You learned how to protect it. You didn't lose your capacity to love. You learned how to love without abandoning yourself. Think about who you are now compared to who you were before the hurt. You move differently. You speak differently. You no longer chase clarity from people who benefit from confusion. You ask better questions. You pause instead of pleading. That is not damage. That is development. Pain also brought you closer to something deeper. Faith. When human promises fell apart, you were forced to look upward, to trust that something higher was guiding what you couldn't understand. And in that surrender, you learned that rejection is sometimes divine redirection. That what didn't work out was never meant to be carried into your future. One day you will look back and realize, the heartbreak didn't delay your life. It redirected it. It saved you from years of emotional compromise. It protected a future version of you who now demands respect, honesty, and mutual effort. The pain came not because you were weak, but because you were ready for elevation. So don't rush your healing. Don't shame yourself for how deeply you felt. That depth is your strength. Let the pain finish its work. Let it teach you. Let it prepare you. Because when the next chapter arrives, and it will, you won't enter it wounded. You'll enter it wise. There comes a moment when you realize that explaining yourself is exhausting. Not because you lack the words, but because the person listening lacks the intention to understand. You replay conversations in your mind, wondering how many different ways you could have said it, how many softer tones you could have used, how much more patient you could have been. And then it hits you. Clarity was never the problem. Willingness was. Silence is not something you fall into. It is something you choose. It's the moment you decide that your peace is more important than being right. That being dignified matters more than being heard by someone who already decided not to listen. Silence is the line you draw when you finally stop over-explaining your worth. When someone plays with your heart, they often play with your voice too. They keep you talking, questioning, justifying. They benefit from your confusion. And the longer you explain, the longer you stay emotionally available to someone who has already checked out. Silence breaks that cycle. Silence removes their access to your energy. This is not the silence of fear. This is the silence of strength. It is the quiet confidence of someone who knows that their actions spoke loudly enough already. You showed up, you tried, you communicated, you cared. At some point, continuing to explain becomes self-betrayal. There is a deep power in walking away without a closing speech. No dramatic exits, no emotional essays sent at midnight, just a calm withdrawal of presence. That kind of silence unsettles people who thrive on reaction. Because they expected noise, they expected chaos, they expected you to chase, and instead they get distance. Silence also gives you back your nervous system. When you stop engaging in emotional tug-of-war, your body finally rests. Your mind clears. You start hearing your own thoughts again, instead of rehearsing arguments you'll never have. Peace returns not because the situation changed, but because you did. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Not everyone deserves an explanation. Some people already understand, they just don't care. Explaining yourself to them is not communication. It's negotiation. Silence is how you exit negotiations where your value is treated like a debate. This kind of silence teaches you self-respect. It teaches you that your boundaries don't need validation, that you don't have to convince someone to choose you, that real connection never requires you to beg for clarity or consistency. When you choose silence, you reclaim your power. You stop leaking energy into conversations that go nowhere. You stop reopening wounds just to feel temporarily connected. You let absence do what words never could. And slowly something shifts inside you. You feel taller, calmer, less reactive. You realize that you don't need the last word to have the final say. Your absence becomes the answer. Silence doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough about yourself to stop fighting for someone who wasn't fighting for you. It means you chose dignity over desperation. Healing over chaos. One day, you'll look back and be proud of the moments you stayed quiet. Not because it was easy, but because it was brave. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. You think your heart broke because it was too soft, too open, too trusting. But that is not what happened. Your heart didn't break because it was weak. It broke because it was brave enough to love without armor. And that kind of courage always leaves a mark. When your heart breaks, something unexpected happens. It doesn't shrink, it expands. It stretches beyond who you used to be. You begin to feel more deeply, not less. You notice pain in others you once walked past. You become gentler with people's stories. And suddenly, your heart holds more than just romance. It holds understanding. A broken heart teaches you nuance. Before, love was black and white, right or wrong, here or gone. Now you understand complexity. You understand that people can care and still cause harm. That intentions don't erase impact. That love without responsibility. Thank you. can still wound deeply. This awareness doesn't harden you, it matures you. You start seeing how much you gave, how much emotional labor you carried, how often you chose understanding over being understood. And instead of resenting that version of yourself, you begin to honor her, because she loved honestly. And honesty is never something to regret. Your expanded heart becomes a compass. It points you toward authenticity. You no longer fall for words without action. You no longer confuse intensity with intimacy. You recognize effort. You recognize safety. You recognize consistency. That discernment was born from pain, but it becomes your protection. There is also a sacred humility that comes with heartbreak. It reminds you that you are human, that love is a risk, that attachment is a leap of faith. And instead of making you fearful, this realization makes you present. You learn to love without losing yourself, to care without abandoning your needs. An expanded heart doesn't chase validation. It doesn't beg to be chosen. It understands that love is not something you prove. It's something you align with. And alignment feels calm. It feels steady. It feels like home. This is how growth looks. Quiet, internal, transformative. One day you wake up and realize you are no longer reacting from wounds, but responding from wisdom. You don't close your heart, you guard it with intention. You don't lower your standards, you raise your self-awareness. And here's the most beautiful part. A heart that has expanded cannot go back to shallow love. It won't tolerate half-truths or half-effort. It seeks depth, presence, mutuality. That's not damage, that's evolution. So don't wish for your old heart back. That heart did its job. It loved fully. It taught you what you deserved. Now you carry something richer, stronger, more alive. Your heart didn't fail you. It grew. Detachment is often misunderstood. People think it means you stopped caring, that you became distant, cold, unreachable. But detachment isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of clarity. It's what happens when emotion finally steps aside and truth steps forward. You didn't wake up one day and suddenly feel nothing. Detachment came slowly, through disappointment, through unmet expectations, through realizing that no matter how much you gave, the imbalance remained. Detachment was not a decision you rushed into. It was a realization you grew into. There's a moment when you stop chasing conversations that never go anywhere. When you stop asking questions that are answered with silence. When you stop filling in gaps for someone who should have been standing beside you. That moment doesn't feel dramatic, it feels quiet, heavy, honest. Detachment begins when you stop confusing potential with reality. When you accept people as they are, not as who they promise to be. You stop arguing with truth. You stop hoping effort will change someone who benefits from staying the same. That acceptance is painful, but it is also freeing. This kind of clarity gives you your energy back. You're no longer emotionally invested in outcomes you can't control. You no longer ride the highs and lows of someone else's inconsistency. You come back to yourself, to your breath, to your inner stillness, and from that stillness, something powerful happens. Peace. Not the kind that comes from things working out, but the kind that comes from understanding when to let go. You realize that holding on was costing you more than letting go ever could. Detachment also teaches you discernment. You learn the difference between effort and intention, between words and behavior, between love that nurtures and love that drains. And once you see that difference, you can't unsee it. This doesn't make you unloving, it makes you selective. You no longer pour into cups with holes. You no longer fight for someone else's readiness. You honor your emotional capacity. Letting go is not failure. Sometimes it is obedience to a truth your heart has been whispering for a long time. Sometimes it is an act of faith, trusting that what's meant for you won't require you to abandon yourself to keep it. Detachment clears the space where illusions once lived. And in that space you begin to see yourself more clearly too. Your needs, your values, your worth. You stop measuring your value by someone else's attention. You become lighter, freer. Not because it didn't hurt, but because you stopped resisting what was already over. And in that clarity, you don't feel empty, you feel whole. Self-respect doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need an audience. It enters quietly the moment you decide that how you are treated matters more than how much you want someone to stay. It begins when you stop negotiating your dignity for temporary comfort. There was a time you would have tolerated mixed signals, excused emotional absence, told yourself that patience was love. But self-respect changes that inner conversation. It asks better questions. It demands alignment. It refuses to be present where effort is optional. The moment you chose yourself, everything shifted, not outwardly but internally. You stopped reacting. You stopped trying to prove your value. You stopped explaining why you deserved consistency. That inner shift changed the entire dynamic, even if the other person never noticed. Self-respect teaches you that love is not something you audition for. You don't perform, overextend, or self-abandon to be chosen. Real love meets you where you stand. It doesn't ask you to shrink when you respect yourself. You no longer tolerate emotional chaos. You recognize when connection costs too much. You understand. At peace is not boring, it's sacred. And anything that disrupts it must earn its place in your life. This is when boundaries become natural instead of forced. You don't set them with anger, you set them with clarity. You don't threaten to leave, you simply do when lines are crossed. And that consistency builds an unshakable sense of self. Self-respect also changes who has access to you. People who once took you for granted suddenly feel distant. Not because you changed your heart, but because you changed your standards. And standards don't argue, they filter. There is a quiet confidence that comes with honoring yourself. You don't rush connections, you observe, you listen, you trust actions more than promises. And that patience protects you from repeating old cycles. Choosing yourself doesn't mean you stop loving others. It means you stop loving yourself last. It means you understand that self-sacrifice without reciprocity is not virtue, it's erosion. And here's the truth. The moment you stop accepting less, you stop receiving less. The world responds to the level of respect you show yourself. Self-respect doesn't make you lonely. It makes you selective. It clears space for relationships that honor who you are, not who you can be molded into. That's when the game truly changes. Because once you choose yourself, there is no going back. There are departures that feel like abandonment, doors that close without warning, people who leave as if what you shared never mattered. And in those moments, the question echoes loudly, why wasn't I enough? But listen carefully now. What was left was never meant to stay. Not everything that arrives in your life is meant to remain. Some people come as lessons, not lifelines. Some connections exist to reveal parts of you that needed healing, not to walk with you forever. And when they leave, it doesn't mean you failed, it means the assignment ended. If someone could walk away easily, let them. Anything that is aligned with you will require effort to leave. It will communicate. It will fight to understand. It will care about the impact of its absence. Indifference is information. Believe it the first time. There is grace in being released from what cannot meet you where you are growing. You are evolving, becoming more aware, more grounded. And not everyone can walk alongside you when you rise. Some only recognize you when you are bending. Faith teaches us that removal is sometimes protection in disguise. That what feels like loss is actually guidance. You couldn't see what staying would have cost you, but life did, God did. And so the separation happened not to hurt you, but to preserve what was becoming fragile inside you. You didn't imagine the red flags. You didn't overreact. You didn't ask for too much. You asked the wrong person. And that distinction matters. The right people don't make you feel difficult for having needs. They meet them with care. Letting go doesn't mean you stop remembering. It means you stop holding on to what hurts you. It means you trust that what's meant for you won't require you to betray your intuition to keep it. When something leaves, it creates space. And space is sacred. Space is where new alignment enters. Where healthier love can breathe, where you finally get to experience connection without anxiety. One day, you will look back and thank what walked away. Not because it didn't hurt, but because staying would have hurt more, because you would have kept negotiating with something that was never committed to staying whole. What left was not a reflection of your worth, it was a reflection of its capacity. And what is meant for you will never require you to chase it down. Healing is not loud. It doesn't announce itself with dramatic declarations or sudden happen. Healing happens in small, almost invisible ways. In the mornings you wake up and don't reach for your phone hoping for a message that won't come. In the moments you pass places that once held memories, and your chest no longer tightens the way it used to. Healing is subtle, but it is unstoppable. You don't win by going back. You don't win by proving your worth. You don't win by making someone regret losing you. You win by becoming someone your old pain no longer recognizes. At first, healing feels lonely, because you are no longer who you were, but you're not fully who you're becoming yet. You sit in the in-between, and that space can feel uncomfortable, but it's sacred. It's where your nervous system resets, where your self-trust rebuilds, where your heart learns how to feel safe again, not with another person, but with itself. Healing teaches you patience with yourself, with time, with the process. You stop rushing your growth just to feel normal again. You understand that becoming whole is not a deadline, it's a devotion. And something incredible happens when you heal. You stop telling the same story with the same pain attached to it. The memory stays, but the wound doesn't control the narrative anymore. What once defined you becomes something you survived, something you grew through. This is where the real victory lives. Not in closure conversations, not in apologies you never received, not in explanations that came too late. The victory is peace. The peace of knowing you honored your heart. The peace of knowing you didn't harden, you healed. The peace of knowing you can love again without fear ruling you. Healing doesn't erase what happened, it redeems it. It takes the pain and transforms it into wisdom, boundaries, strength, discernment. You start choosing differently. You pause where you used to rush. You listen where you used to excuse. You trust your intuition because it's been tested and it survived. And here's the quiet miracle. As you heal, you stop attracting the same kind of hurt. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Your energy shifts, your standards rise, your tolerance for inconsistency disappears. You no longer chase intensity, you choose stability. You no longer romanticize chaos, you honor peace. You no longer confuse longing with love. Healing returns you to yourself, and faith carries you through it. Faith that what didn't work out was making room for something truer. Faith that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. Faith that you are being guided even when you don't understand the path. So yes, let them think they won. Let them believe the game ended when they walked away. Because the truth is, the game only ended when you healed. And when you heal, you don't just survive the story, you rise above it, you rewrite it, you walk forward without bitterness, but with strength. Don't rush this season. Don't doubt this process. Don't close your heart. Anchor it in faith, because what's coming next will meet you healed, whole and ready. And that is how the game truly ends. So don't look back with regret. Look forward with faith. What hurt you did not weaken you. It refined you. What left your life did not empty you. It made room. Trust this. Nothing meant for you will miss you. No love aligned with your destiny will require you to beg, shrink, or break. What is written for you will arrive with peace, not confusion. Stand tall in who you are becoming. Walk with discipline. Love with wisdom. Serve with humility. And keep your heart anchored in faith. Because when you choose healing over bitterness, truth over illusion, and faith over fear, you don't just move on, you rise, and everything meant for you will rise to meet you.